So welcome everyone. Today's guest is very special for multiple reasons, but let's just introduce her very, very quickly. She's a multifamily real estate investor and she's now working on syndication. She owns over 1,600 doors and very, very importantly, which I love, she has never lost investor capital. Everyone, please welcome Hillary. So
Thanks.
let's jump right into the questions. So, how did you first get into real estate? What inspired you? And what was like the aha moment that made you, focus on multifamily specifically?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I come from the world of teaching elementary students, which
Okay.
has nothing to do with real estate.
Yes.
But one of our neighbors invested locally in York, Pennsylvania, where we live. And one day he came over to our house and was like, "Hey," he just mentioned like nonchalantly, my rental properties have paid for our car and paid for our vacations, and yeah, just I let my rental properties do that." And we're like, what? So that was really the first time like anyone even described, that that was possible.
Right.
And he said, you guys should do that. And we didn't know what that meant. Honestly, I thought he meant flipping. I
Yeah.
really didn't know what investing in real estate looked like. But then we started listening to podcasts. Now, we had been accidental landlords back in 2007 when we lived abroad in
Okay.
South Korea for a year. So we did rent out our house and we kind of understood like, okay, we can have somebody else paying our mortgage. That was nice. But didn't really get the bug until many years later. And I guess the aha moment was listening to a podcast, like the very first podcast we listened to. I think it was called Rental Rookie. It's not
Okay.
a big podcast, but the host was a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and she described how she basically replaced her income within a couple years just by buying one property at a time. I think she was doing single family.
Yeah.
And we were kind of like, what? You can do that? And it was from knowing nothing. It came from being a teacher and just knowing that world and then studying a little bit and then figuring it out and jumping in. So yeah, that was like our aha moment to get into real estate. Didn't even really try for multifamily. Like we
Okay.
we started making offers. After we were making offers, we were looking at single family homes and duplexes, but we ended up with a fiveplex.
Okay.
So it was
By
kind of by
accident. By
accident.
accident. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. So can you walk us through, I know you've been in many multifamily deals now, but can you walk us through the first one? The good, the bad, the ugly, what surprised you the most and any you'll never do that again lessons.
Yeah. Our very first deal was a 5 unit in Franklintown, Pennsylvania, middle of nowhere.
Okay.
And it was a growing market. It is a growing market, but it's just so small. I don't know that I would have chosen it again. I wouldn't choose it now, but this worked out for us. It was a cash flowing deal.
Mm-hmm.
It needed light value add. We had read books and listened to podcasts. That was our only education on what to do. But
Right.
it kind of went to plan. Our renovation cost was more than we thought, but
Typical,
the rent,
typical. Mm-hmm.
yeah, typical, right? But the rent was also way more than we thought we could get too. So
Oh,
it
that's
kind of
good. Yeah.
really
Kind of
worked
balanced
out.
out. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and we did the BRRRR method. So we were able to do a refinance after 6 months,
Right.
and we had raised the rent so much that we got all of our money back in a refinance.
That's
And we were
nice.
like, this works.
This works,
you know,
right? This works.
like
This
let's
works.
do that
Uh-huh.
again. So that our first deal was amazing. I wouldn't change anything about it. Like we've had wonderful experiences with getting great tenants and making sure they're all qualified
Mm-hmm.
um, and then they treat you well. Like they're wonderful. They're wonderful people because they're great tenants because they have the income. They don't have to worry about, coming up with the money and asking
Right.
us if we have a discount or something. And we've interviewed them, so we know that they seem like the kind of people that would take care of the property and be responsible. And it's so far it has worked out. It's worked out
Okay.
great.
Okay, great, great, great. So, how about your first syndication? Do you mind talking about that a bit? Like, same question. So, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah.
Anything you would do, anything you learned and you would do differently?
Yeah, for sure. So my first syndication was in Jamestown, New York.
Okay.
And that was with a group out of Erie, Pennsylvania. Jamestown is right over the border in New York, upstate New York, and it was a 114 unit. My role, I guess, like the way that I could add value to the team
Hmm.
was raising capital, helping with the newsletter, which I still do,
Okay.
um, also participating on asset management.
Yes.
So I was lucky enough just to meet the the right people and form a good relationship with them and say, I think I can add value to your team. And they let me. So, I lucked out there. But it's been a great deal. I think the biggest lesson, like the thing that I would the takeaway that I'll never do again,
Okay.
is I sent out the offering memo, which
Yes.
has all the returns on it. It's got all of the business plan and everything. But I sent that out. I made it myself and then sent it
Hmm.
out before the deal was really finalized. So
Oh my goodness.
we,
Okay.
we were still we were still like in due diligence. We hadn't
Yeah.
factored in the roof project yet.
Hmm.
So the returns looked way better than they ended up being.
Right.
And it just was a bad look, right? Because it looks like you're doing a bait and switch,
Right.
which of
Right.
course
Right.
I'm not trying to do. But I just was so anxious, I guess, to get this out there. And I thought, wow, these returns are like the best I've ever seen. So it turned out it was more like a run of the mill, double your money in 5 years kind of deal, which a lot of them are like that.
Right.
But I was putting out something that was a lot more attractive than that. And then I had to like backpedal and be
Hmm.
like, oh,
Hmm.
sorry, I jumped the gun a little bit. So
Yes.
that was lesson learned big time.
Okay. Well, it's always good to learn lessons, as long as you can learn from them, don't repeat those mistakes again. You'll do better and better each time. So how about like your strategy? Has your strategy evolved since that first deal? For example, in terms of like maybe deal criteria, risk tolerance, or your like mindset shifts?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely my strategy has changed since finding our 5 unit, because now I'm letting someone else do the heavy lifting
Right.
of finding the deal.
Hmm. Hmm.
This large multifamily business is just so different because we're all staying in our lane and doing what we do best. And I don't need to do everything. So I can let people that are smarter than me and have a footprint in the market take care of that part of it. And then I can just obviously I trust the team.
Right.
We've known
Hmm.
each other for a long time, but I do look at every single deal and look at the underwriting and just make sure that everything looks great. But my role really is bringing in investors, qualifying investors, and
Hmm.
then keeping in touch with them, and then participating on asset management. So I would say the team for me is more the criteria that I have than the deal itself.
Okay.
I care more about the team and their track record, and just how they are as people. Like are they people that you can trust and that you would want to work with? So
Right.
that's the biggest thing. And then the market really is second to that.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, I still want it to be a growing market. I don't want it to be, a place where everybody's getting out of Dodge. But
Exactly. Hmm.
you can make money in a lot of markets, even if they're just more like steady markets. So I actually have kind of a diverse portfolio now, and I can offer my investors some diversity in their real
Different
estate.
options. Right. Uh-huh.
Yeah, where it's more heavy on the cash flow, maybe in Pennsylvania, for example, but a little heavier on the high end, appreciation in like the Southeast, where a lot of
Yes.
people are flocking
Okay.
to.
Okay. Okay. So do you work with the same team each time, or you work with different teams on different deals, or how does that work?
So I only have a few teams. I don't work with
Hmm.
a lot, and I kind of keep working with those teams over and over.
Okay. Yeah.
And I know them pretty well and trust them. So when they have a new deal, I can pretty much know that it's going to be like the others have been, which have been solid, great deals.
Right.
Um, yeah, I mean, in that way, I'm a little bit of a free agent, I guess you could say, because
Yes.
I can go to a new team. I don't
Hmm.
I don't have like an integrated operating system, and I'm not boots on the ground. So I'm able to go to different teams, but it's kind of nice to stay put. It's kind of
Yes.
nice to
Hmm.
already know what you're working with and not have to go through the whole process of vetting the team all over again. So I basically have a team in Pennsylvania, and we do deals Jamestown, New York is, right over the border. So we've got Erie, Pennsylvania, Jamestown, New York. That's the one area that's the closest to me.
Hmm.
Um, then we've got the Southeast team, which is Savannah, Georgia, and Charleston, South Carolina.
Right.
Phenomenal team, phenomenal deals. And then the other team is in Oklahoma, so it's a little more South Central, I
Yeah.
guess.
Really
And
everywhere.
yeah, and
Mhm.
I mean every team has their own wonderful head above the rest of the competition for one reason or another.
Right.
Whether it's because they've been there for 40 years, which is the case for the team in Oklahoma. They just know that area so well and they own a lot of property there. So it's
Right.
like,
Right.
as soon as something's for sale.
Yeah.
Um, and then the team in the Southeast, they just have amazing relationships with brokers and sellers. And it just seems like every time a broker has an amazing deal, like they think of us.
Okay.
They think of us
That's good.
first.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah,
That's
because
pretty good. Uh-huh.
we've closed for them so many times and just been good humans. So
Yeah.
they want to
Hmm.
work with us again. So
Hey, if you've got a real estate deal, a problem, or even just a question, we want to hear about it. Doesn't matter if it's big, small, complicated, ugly, or somewhere in between. If it's a good deal, we're absolutely interested. Period. And if you've got capital, you need to put to work in solid real estate opportunities. We've got those too. Either way, let's talk. Here's how this works. We always need more deals. We always need more capital. And we always find a way to make it happen. No games, no runaround. If we can't work together directly, we'll hand deliver you to someone who can. Okay,
yeah.
that's good. That's good. So let's see. What else should I ask next? Okay, well, how about tips and pitfalls? So, finding deals. Any tips or pitfalls you have there? Let's start with that one first.
Yeah.
I know you don't focus so much on finding deals, but just based on the teams that you work with, how do they go about finding deals, and what tips or pitfalls can you talk about?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is relationships, having
Mhm.
great relationships with the people who can find you deals and get those deals for you, whether that's sellers or brokers, even banks. Sometimes
Right,
you can get a deal from the bank. You can certainly get better financing from lenders if you have a good relationship with them,
right, right.
um, and a track record with them, and just being nice to work with overall. So relationships is the biggest thing, and follow up. So if you're a
Hmm.
person who's there are a lot of people out there I know that are looking for deals, looking for their first deal.
Right.
The biggest thing is follow up with those brokers. If somebody sends you a deal and maybe it's not your criteria, or maybe
Hmm.
it doesn't cut the mustard for one reason or another, still say thank you for sending it to me. And
Right.
I like this about it, but I'm kind of looking for something that's more XYZ. And yeah, I think that goes a long way toward
I agree. I
um,
agree. Uh-huh.
just that follow up. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. I think giving brokers feedback is very important. I think a lot of people they will get a deal from the broker and then just be like, "Oh, this is not my cup of tea," and but they don't get back to the broker, and I think that's a big mistake. I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so how about tips and pitfalls for, operating or executing on deals?
Okay, sure. Um, I guess be realistic with your timeline and your
Hmm.
cost. If
Hmm.
there's anything that I've learned by owning my own properties before jumping into the large apartment complexes, it's that things don't always go as planned, and
Right.
you really have to have buffers in your analysis, right? Your
For sure, for
underwriting.
sure. Yes.
It's going to take 3 times as long as you thought it was going to, and it's going to cost twice as much.
Right.
Um, so just see what happens if you put that into your underwriting. Like, okay, it's going to cost us more than we think,
Hmm.
and or the price is going to go up, right?
Right.
Um, and I think a lot of people don't have that conservatism in their underwriting, and they're sending out returns to investors and saying, this is what we think you're going to earn
Hmm.
if if everything goes perfectly, right?
Right, right, right.
But it's not going to go perfectly. So just to avoid having to call your investors, and I've been on the receiving end of this as a limited partner,
Okay.
to avoid to avoid that awful phone call where you say, we kind of messed up. We didn't have enough reserves, or we didn't have
Uh,
enough this or that, or we didn't account for the fact that our taxes were going to go up or whatever.
mhm.
Um, you don't want to be in that position, and you want to have enough buffer in your underwriting and in
Yes.
the deal when you're jumping into it, so that when those things happen, and they will,
Mhm.
that you're ready for it and that you won't go under.
Yeah, so yeah, I definitely agree. It's very important to be conservative, even though that might make you miss out on some deals. And I also think it's very important as when you're underwriting to stress test the deal a lot, see what happens if this and that goes off and everything. I definitely agree with that as well. Okay, great advice so far. And then maybe you haven't gotten to this stage yet. I don't know if you've gone full cycle in any of the deals, but what about exiting? Any tips or pitfalls here that we can talk about?
Yeah, I actually haven't gone full cycle on any deals except for a local
Okay.
small family. Um, yeah, I still I know some things we have to prepare for and be ready for, which is you have to leave a little bit of meat on the bone for the
Mm-hmm.
next buyer. You
Right.
want to make your property attractive to new buyers, and if they can't add value themselves and do exactly what you just did, they're not going to be willing to pay
Right.
what it's worth.
Exactly.
So that's one thing. And then another thing that applies particularly to me is communicate to your investors
Mm-hmm.
and make sure they're in the know. Like, what is your plan? Is it on the market? Like, we should know that, right?
Right.
So and again, like my LP experience has taught me a lot of this, because um there were some problems with my first LP investment when I really didn't know what I was getting into necessarily.
Right.
And I think I want to avoid having that happen to me as a general partner.
Yeah. I think actually, from what I've heard, okay, a lot of the best GPs they had a like, maybe less than satisfactory experience as an LP, and then they learned from that. They learned what not to do, and they apply that when they were a GP. So I think it sounds like that's exactly what happened there with you. All right. Okay. So now, on to my favorite part of the interview. We're almost coming to the end, the rapid fire round. So
Okay.
just hit me with the answers. Don't think too much. First question,
Okay.
worst tenant story that comes to mind.
Worst tenant story is definitely in one of my Airbnbs, if I
Okay.
can speak
Yeah.
to
Yeah. That
that.
counts. That counts for sure. Uh-huh.
It was pretty recent as well, so it's fresh on my mind.
Okay.
We had just a terrible experience with some young guys who stayed in there and just messed up
Yeah.
everything. They were
Yeah.
they were smoking. They hid all the smoke detectors, threw them out into the yard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of them
Wow.
we found one in a pillow.
Mm-hmm.
We realized why they had done that, because they were smoking and also destroying the kitchen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So it was quite a mess to clean up, but yeah, my lesson learned from that is, like, make sure the person that you're renting to already has reviews on
Mm-hmm,
them.
mm-hmm. Yes.
This person did not, and I was like, well, they're probably fine. No.
Mm-hmm. No, no,
I
not fine.
learned a
Okay.
lesson. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's certainly sounds really horrible. Okay. So, next one. Oh, so favorite expense saving hack if you have one.
Yeah, I would say Rubs
Mm-hmm.
qualifies there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The ratio utility billing system, where you're kind
Right.
of billing back for the utilities. And that's a huge, like, you can put that in your underwriting that you're going to do that, because
Yeah.
it's kind of a sure thing, and
For
it's
sure. For
it's
sure.
legal. So yeah, that's what I would put up there. Increase your NOI with Rubs.
Yes. I think if you see a deal that doesn't like where the current owner doesn't they haven't implemented rubs, then that's definitely a good deal to take a look at. I love those ones. Okay. Um, so this one is actually a two-part question. What about, there's a lot of advice floating around in real estate. Like I've heard something and I have never been able to fact check it, which is that, 90% of millionaires, 90% of millionaires made their money in real estate, which I have never been able to fact check. So I don't know if that's true or not. But anyway, so there's a lot of advice, a lot of things floating around about real estate and so on. So what in your mind is like, some of the most overrated and underrated advice that you have heard with respect to real estate?
Okay. I would say overrated is probably that real estate always goes up in value.
Yeah.
It doesn't always.
Right.
And I think that's a little risky to always assume that because it does matter what market you're buying in,
Right.
uh, especially if you're buying in a one horse town where there's one employer and that
Right.
employer
And then they
leaves.
pack up and leave, or you're screwed. Yeah.
You're, you're not getting anywhere close to the rents that even that
Exactly.
they're already getting. Yeah. And market cycles exist and bad deals still lose money. So I think that would be my um overrated,
Overrated.
right?
Okay, how about
You
underrated
said
then?
underrated. I'm gonna go with relationships again. You
Okay.
can get the deal of the century just by knowing somebody
hmm
and just be a nice human and like
Yeah.
keep in touch with people.
Right.
It's
Right.
the
Okay.
all in the follow-up.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I can't disagree with the your underrated advice there. How about your unfair advantage? So like what's your superpower if you want to put it in that way?
Okay, so I can put this two ways, I guess. One of them is my team, which I
hmm
feel like my team, I have an unfair advantage by being part of these teams
Right. Right.
where they already have off-market deal access. Like
hmm
they already are established and already getting great deals. And coming from the world of underwriting a whole bunch of deals and
hmm
trying to find, just trying to find a property on my own and
hmm
realizing how hard that is. The
Right.
deals
Right.
don't
Right. They
they don't
don't
even
come out of
pencil.
yeah. You got to look through so many deals to find one that just pencils, right?
Yeah, and then you kind of suspect that maybe you're not being sent the best deals.
hmm
um, and somebody else is because your friends
Yes.
are closing on deals over here. So I think that's part of it is like the strong broker relationships that my team has, and
Right.
they're kind of direct to owner sourcing and things like that. So yeah, having less competition in that way.
Okay.
Um, but my own like for myself, um, maybe having been a teacher. Like
Okay.
I come from the world of teaching. I'm used to talking to people. I'm used to educating people.
hmm
Um,
So
so
I
I'm
think that's what makes you a good capital raiser right there.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just had to switch the subject matter.
Right,
So,
right, right, exactly. Yeah.
worked out.
Okay. Anything, I don't like to use the word regret, but anything that you would do differently if you could go back and for anything related to real estate, anything you would do differently if you can go back.
I'd probably start sooner.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Especially after we rented out our house and we
Yeah.
were like, wow, we spent the entire year abroad and didn't have to pay our mortgage
Yeah.
and we got paid.
Sounds like a good
And
deal, huh?
why didn't we do that again?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it like took a while for us to catch on to that, but yeah, I would have hoped that I would have got the bug a little sooner and started sooner and imagine like how I'd be doing now. But whatever, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Glad
It is what it is. Right. At least you
for
started. At least you're in it, and you're successful now. So whatever. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
And maybe the last question I have here is what advice would you give to new investors, especially in the in the multifamily space?
Yeah. So join a mastermind if you're
hmm
able. That was big for me, and that really helped form relationships with people that were already in the game and that were willing to help me learn. They were ready to show what they were doing and take on a partner like myself who maybe didn't have as much experience as they did.
Right.
Excuse me.
It's okay.
Another one just in general is get around experienced investors however you can.
Right.
So maybe go to local meetups and talk to the person who's doing what you want to be doing. Um, and yeah, and then don't worry about getting a home run every single time, especially when
hmm
you're getting started. Just get some singles
Right.
and you'll be away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely agree with finding people who have done what you want to do, and trying to learn from them, even if it's like a paid mentorship, a paid mastermind, or whatever. I don't understand why so many people are against the idea of paying for coaching. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, it's like if you want to get educated, it's not going to be free, Oh, of course there are free ways to do it. You can check out videos on YouTube, you can read some books or whatever, but I think the fastest way is really to find someone who has done what you want to do, and find a way to learn from them. That's going to accelerate your progress like nothing else can, I think anyway. Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, so is there anything, that I didn't ask you that you think either the audience, I don't know how many people are going to listen to this, but that either the audience would like to would have liked me to ask, or that you wish I asked you anyway?
No, but I'll just say this is for anybody who wants to get into real estate. Like, just take action.
Yep.
That's the biggest thing. Um, I go to a lot of real estate meetups, and I'm always shocked
Hmm.
that people are there for years
But they
and
don't
don't
take
buy
action.
they don't buy any properties. I'm
Uh-huh.
like, you here for how many years and you're still looking? I mean, at some point you just have to jump in the game.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
your first deal might not be the best deal ever, but you're not gonna lose everything. A lot of times the real estate is forgiving in a lot of ways, and over
Hmm.
time, it's gonna build if you're in even just a steady market. So just take action. Jump in.
Okay, okay. I think that's very, very solid advice. Okay, so last thing, let's wrap up. Is there any project that you're working on or any resources that you're very excited about that you would like to share? Or, if people want to, maybe someone thinks, I want to get involved in a deal as an LP, or I want to learn more. How can people, reach you?
Yeah, excellent question. So we have deals going a lot of times,
Hmm.
but they are 506C, or
Right?
sorry,
506B or
506B.
506B? Okay,
Um,
B, okay.
they're B.
Uh-huh.
So that means I can't publicly talk about the deal. So I won't,
Right,
that's
right.
just
Don't
how
want to get in
deals
trouble for
are.
sure. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so your two questions kind of go hand in hand. If you want to know about the deals that we have and you want to be kind of privy to when we find a deal and we start taking the first, it's first come, first serve. So
Hmm.
if you want to be on that list that sees those deals, then you would have to have a conversation with me first.
Right.
We'd have to actually be voice to voice or maybe Zoom or something like that.
Hmm.
Because the SEC rules are surrounding the
Yeah, you have to have
506B.
that relationship, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So to reach me, you can email me, Hillary with one L, Hilary at brightsoundinvestments.com.
Okay.
Or you can find me on my website is www.brightsoundinvestments.com.
Okay, great, great, great. I'm sure some people, well, I can't say sure, but I hope some people will reach out to you. Because like I've heard from numerous people, and the reason that I wanted to interview, I've heard from numerous people that you are very good at capital raising, and you a lot of people say that your trajectory was just like really, parabolic. It just came out of nowhere and just, oh wow, suddenly she's like the master capital raiser. So yeah. I won't name names, but people have said this. So there you go. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Hillary, for your time today. It's been a real pleasure, and maybe I hope to do it again. Maybe we'll pick up 2 months later, 3 months later, half a year. I don't know, but I like to see how people are going over time. So maybe when you do, when you go full cycle on the first deal, maybe after that we can have a nice follow-up interview to see how that went. Maybe there's some lessons
Yeah.
learned there anyway, and so on. Okay, so thank you so much for your time today, and goodbye, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Yep.
See you later.